Oh, there we are. Okay. So good morning. We are going to begin with our song.
Okay. A couple of technical things there. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
So let's just take a moment now. And the invitation this morning is to sink into this moment that you've set aside and to know that your soul is welcome. Not only in this moment, but in every moment that you belong. That you were made for this time, for this life, for this heart connection. And let's just take a moment now and bring to mind someone in our lives that perhaps we're feeling some concern for right now. And you may wish to even put your hand on your heart as you are thinking of them. And our thoughts surround them, our heart thoughts surround them, that their soul is welcome, that they belong. That they are a gift to our world. And now let's expand that idea as we embrace from this heart center our entire world. Both humanity, animals, plants, the very earth itself. And we know that it too is part of this divine soul that we call our world. And that all belongs. All is precious. All souls are welcome. All beings. All life. And so join now as we say our prayer. Taking a deep breath and knowing that we are part of the one mind, the one heart, the one breath. As we pray, oh great love, thank you for living and loving in us and through us. May all that we do flow from our deep connection with you and all beings. Listen to our heart's longing for the healing of our world as we open to the infinite field of compassion, wisdom, justice, peace, and radiant well-being that is always available. From this place of connected oneness, we choose to live in your flow. And we offer our prayers in all the holy names of God. Amen and amen. So welcome, my friends, and welcome to all those that will later be watching this. And I want to remind you that this is week 9, can you believe that, of our 10 weeks. And if you saw my email, if you've already gotten on our website, and it's unitychq, .org, and by the way, chq.org is also for Chautauqua, so you can see what's going on there as well. You will see that there's an announcement for what's coming next. Janita and I were having so much fun this summer that we just said, oh, we started brainstorming, what can we do next? Well, because before next summer we'll be at Chautauqua, and we thought, well, maybe we can record the ministers next summer that we bring to Chautauqua. But wouldn't it be great if we had some connection going forward? So we've decided that beginning the first Sunday in October, and once a month, the first Sundays, we are going to continue a service. And that following Wednesday evening, we'll have a discussion group about the service. And I've selected something, and our board has talked about it, that seemed exciting. And our new series is going to be embracing conflict, and creating peace. So this comes out of a book called Eye of the Storm by that same name, and you'll be getting information about it. But I just wanted to let you know, if you're thinking that next Sunday is your last week, we'll take a break in September. So again, welcome. We're glad you're here. I hope you'll pass on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page to your friends, and that we'll keep going. And I look forward to seeing you next Sunday for our last to celebrate this series, Trusting the Process of Change. So now let's begin with our music for today's sharing.
Okay, this is a song called Hero's Journey by Susan K. Wyatt, and so I'm going to sing the chorus 2 times. So first you'll hear it run through, and then you should have the words. It's pretty simple, and then you can join me the second time and every time through. All right. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Listen to the sound. Can you hear the message? Listen to the sound beckoning to you, safe passage. Join me on this time. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Listen to the sound. Can you hear the message? Listen to the sound beckoning to you, safe passage. Run at the walls in front of you and watch them disappear, and know that there is something greater here. Walk through the fire that's ahead of you. Look directly at your fear. Trust the voice that's whispering in your ear. Ready? Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. listen to the sound. Can you hear the message? Listen to the sound, beckoning to you, safe passage. Charge up the mountains looming over you, feel it crumble away. Revel in the sun that lights your way. Jump into love with all your might. Feel love burning bright. And let it get you through your darkest night. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Listen to the sound. Can you hear the message? Listen to the sound, beckoning to you, safe passage. Charge up the mountains looming over you, feel it crumble away, and revel in the sun that lights your way. Jump into love with all your might, feel love burning bright, let it get you through your darkest night. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Listen to the sound. Can you hear the message? Listen to the sound, beckoning to you, safe passage. Got another opportunity. Ready? Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Every life, every day is a hero's journey. Listen to the sound. Can you hear the message? Listen to the sound.
Thank you, Janine. That was just amazing. You know, I played with this word hero, and I have a hard time identifying with the idea of my journey in life being a hero's journey. So, and I was thinking about how things have changed, how in our country we're looking at heroes different, because I've put on a pedestal some people that I think are heroes, and I measure myself against them, and that's probably not a good thing to do. And I wanted to share with you a quote from Joseph Campbell. Many of you know him from The Power of Myth, just an amazing person. I believe he died in the 80s. And he wrote this about a hero's journey. He said, "We're not on our journey to save the world, but to save ourselves. But in doing that, you save the world. The influence of a vital person vitalizes." I just loved that. I got so excited when I found that quote, and I thought, oh, okay. Being a hero is to live juicy, like to live vitally. And I thought, well, who am I? What's my hero's journey? And one of the things that informs that is I had a favorite book when I was a little girl. I read this book over and over and again. Somehow it got lost. And I remember the last 4 lines of this book. I could quote it forever. And my daughter, I was sharing it with her, and she went on eBay, and for my 50th birthday, she found this book, and she had a bid out. Apparently, it's a classic. And it's about a little girl who goes on this adventure, and her parents are moving to a new place. They move ahead of her with her 2 twin baby sisters. And she takes a journey which takes her with a miner on a donkey going through the Grand Canyon. She's on a bus. She's on a boat going down the Mississippi, and finally on an airplane. And each of these places she meets someone. And by the way, the title of the book is Ginny's First Secret. And back then there was a Ginny doll. I wanted that Ginny doll so bad because I love this book. And I didn't even play with dolls, but I love this book. And my parents said, nope, too expensive. It was another one of these big ticket things back then. And so, but each person tells her, there's a Native American young girl that gets on the bus with her and whispers in her ear. Each person whispers, and at the end, the 4 lines are, open your heart, open your mind, look for the best, and that's what you'll find. And that's informed my life. And when I think of a hero's journey, I think, okay, I have worked my life. That's been really important to me. Can I keep my mind open and my heart open? And can I look for the best? And it's been a struggle because I was brought up in a family of worrywarts who didn't look for the best at all. So, but that book was a gift. And I invite you now, as we're thinking about a hero's journey, because this week is our plan is unfolding. We've talked about going through endings and this time of uncertainty and a new beginning. Well, to understand what defines us, what gives us life and vitality, as Joseph Campbell said, look to like, what was the book? What's the song? What's the poem? What's the movie you watch over and over? Who do you admire? Because something within those things, there's a message for you. Funny thing, my husband, I asked him the same thing. I was like, okay, what is your favorite book? And it was Black Stallion. And I kidded him and said, oh, I get it. You remember the young boy on the beach racing on the Black Stallion? It was just this magnificent scene. And he loved that. That was his favorite scene. And I thought, so that's why you keep buying fast cars. So probably true. He has this, which I can't even understand because that's not my hero's journey. Mine is about overcome. But sure enough, he likes competition and he likes to go fast and all these things. But all of us have something in us that's about a hero's journey. And often what brings it forward is sometimes what we've said over these last few weeks is chaos and uncertainty. And I would say that that's happening right now in our country, that there is a chaos and uncertainty that's trying to give birth. Well, our chapter this week with Robert Brummett talks about the fact that we are going to climb to a bigger vision of this. And he tells a story. He said, imagine there's a beautiful Oriental rug. And it's all these colors and textures. Now imagine you're a caterpillar and you are crawling across that rug. What would you see? Well, you'd see one color maybe at a time. And it would there might look a little chaotic because things would keep changing and the colors and the things. But wonder now if you've gone into the chrysalis, into that time that we've talked about, to the void, like the caterpillar does, which seems like the end of the world, right, for the caterpillar, and it surely is. But what comes out? A butterfly. And what is that? Now let's imagine we're the butterfly and we are gently floating over that rug. Might we see the pattern? And so that's the invitation. Can we bring our vision up to a point where, even though there's a lot of chaos going on and a lot of uncertainty and we don't know where it's going, can we make in faith this idea that if we could bring our consciousness up to the level, that we would see the pattern that's happening? And so Robert Brummett says that in the nucleus of every cell is a DNA molecule. And that DNA molecule puts forth the destiny of the cell. Wow, of course. So here's nature living out a destiny. So why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we, like our very selves, have a divine plan within us that is evolving us? And then let's take our whole community. There's we are part of a community of humanity. And do we not wonder, is that the same thing? Do we have within us a divine plan of evolution that's calling us forward? And often the very thing that begins that call is what we consider the darkest time. So there was a philosopher and a Jesuit priest named Teilhard de Chardin, and he began life in the 1800s and lived to 1955. And I want to read you some of the things that he says, and Robert has it quoted in this book about that, being a Jesuit, but he was also a paleontologist. And he absolutely believed that humanity was on this path of evolution. And he wrote a book called The Phenomenon of Man. And he articulated the vision that physical universe was a dynamic manifestation of ever evolving consciousness. Wow. Think from the one cell organisms to us, to the increasing complexity of our world and the diversity of our world, that we are part of this. In fact, we may be the architects to a great degree of this evolution. And so he goes on to say that in the system, humanity as a species is an essential link in the progressive unfoldment of consciousness for the most primal substance of the universe to the culmination of all evolution. The omega point, conscious oneness with God. He's saying that everything that's happened in the billions of years since creation has led us to this oneness, this consciousness of God. And so we're here to be part of that, which I have to take a deep breath of, because sometimes I feel I'm working against that. And he goes on further to say that we reach a convergence, that a place, a critical point in which evolution will dead end or will make a quantum leap into an entirely new level of consciousness. We will either dead end. And so then it got me to thinking, okay, my spirituality, is it a spirituality that is continuing? Has it ever dead ended? Yes, it has. And then did I go search for something that was expansive into a new evolution of myself? When I worked in the corporate world, I was a team leader of a group, and there was a person on my team. And every morning I'd come in and I would read the Daily Word, and he asked if he could read it. Well, he came one day to a Daily Word that upset him a lot, and it was something in unity that has to do with us having this divine pattern in us, that we were co-creators with God, that we had this Christ, the pattern that Jesus expressed so beautifully, that we had that potential. He told me that I was reading the devil's words. And God bless him, because I really loved him. He was a really loving family man. However, he had a catch-22. And his catch-22 was what I call a dead-end evolution. And we can see it in the world. It's like this belief that says, and he said to me, actually, he said, if it sounds too good, it's the devil's tongue. This is really what he believed. And it was so sad. In fact, I can laugh at some of the things he told me now, because he told me he was praying for my soul, and I hugged him and I thanked him for doing that. I didn't fight this. But he told me when I was pregnant with our daughter, Lucy, he said, you know, you're going to suffer because of what Eve did, the sins of Eve. It was just like, I had to go, okay. So interesting. His belief was that pain is punishment. Our suffering is punishment. But wonder if it's the trigger for transformation. that's how I've changed from the way I was taught when I was a little kid. I have this more evolutionary idea that I'm actually being prompted to grow when things aren't working out. And that's just such an amazing freedom. And so we can get a clue. So I think there are a couple people back in history that really point to this idea way before their time. And one of them was Buddha. And you remember, before he was Buddha, he was a prince, a wealthy prince, and he started rejecting this idea, and he started looking outside of him. He was curious, and he sat under the Bodhi tree. And after he sat, it says he was walking along a path, and a man came to him, and feeling the energy of what had transformed in him, and I call this the evolutionary, that Teilhard de Chardin said, he had experienced that oneness, that he had come into the consciousness of oneness with all around him. And the man encountering him says, "Are you God?" And the Buddha says, "No." "Then are you a man?" "No." "Then what are you?" And he says, "I am awake." I want you to feel those words. I am awake. Can you imagine saying that to yourself every day as you start your day? I am awake. And Jesus said very similar things all the time. He said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. He didn't say it was out in the future after we died. I don't even know where we got that misunderstanding exactly. Probably from some other figures in the Bible that promoted that idea. But he kept saying, he kept comparing the kingdom of God, which to me is a state of consciousness, the way he described it. He'd say, like a mustard seed that you plant, and it creates, the tiniest seed creates this amazing tree. The kingdom of God is like that, where birds come. And that just feels like that expansive idea that once we move into this kingdom, there are possibilities that grow, and there's an abundance of all we need. He said it is like yeast that rises bread. So there's our flour, and it's nothing to us until that yeast rises that energy. And so then I thought about, okay, so if we look at the past, if we go back and we look several hundred years, and I love looking at different, I like a lot of history. And so if you've read much history, you go, we have really become so much more aware and loving and empathetic than if you look at past. It was common hundreds of years ago for somebody to be swinging on a noose. In fact, not common 100 years ago in this country for someone being lynched. In fact, less than 100 years ago, I believe in the last lynching was in the 1960s. And there was a consciousness that allowed people to be okay with that. And so we can watch, there was a consciousness that allowed Stonewall to happen. And we can see, if we look back at how we've progressed, and we can see this evolution take place. Now I challenge you to go and look. Imagine you're 100 years from now, which I'm not sure my physical body in this shape will be around. You never know with what science develops. However, and let's look back at the way we're living in consciousness today. What might people 100 years from now go, can you believe they believe that? Can you believe the way we mistreated our brothers and sisters, limited their possibilities? Can you believe the way we treat farm animals? The way we take from our environment without an exchange? So our evolutionary path is kind of to visualize what our 100-year in the future might look back at this. And it's not that everything in the past is something that we should begrudge and say, oh my goodness, this was just a terrible. There are so many wonderful things from the past that we need to pull forward with us into this future, the best of the past with the new awakenings. And so that's kind of our butterfly experience. Can we see at this bigger level and know that ultimately we're to become at this new level of consciousness? So I'd like to read again from the book. And this is, some of you might know someone named Barbara Marx Hubbard. And she made her transition, I believe, last year. And she had the same as Chardin. She had the same idea that it was actually our hero's journey to evolve for all of humanity. And she says this about the crisis, and it's just so relevant to me, to the crisis we're going through, and maybe some personal crisis you've gone through. Crisis precedes transformation. Now, we have a choice not to transform with that crisis, to become bitter and angry. And we also have a choice to transform out of joy and love, and not wait for what one we used to say in Unity years ago. I heard this, I haven't heard it for a while. Let the cosmic 2x4 hits us on the head, right? But often we do, and especially as a culture, we wait for this, that the transformation requires a crisis. So she says, before every quantum change, quote, problems emerge, limits to growth, stagnation, unmanageable complexity, impending catastrophes, disintegration. How does that make it? Like, oh, okay. From the perspective of the present, the crisis looks like mistakes, deadly errors in the system. But from the perspective after the quantum transformation, these problems are seen as evolutionary drivers, vital stimulants, which trigger astounding divine in design and divine invocations. And so I was thinking about that in my life, and I came up with an example of one time when I had to make a quantum leap. And I was a new minister out of school. I came to a church, and at the same time, within a short time, my mother broke her hip. I had to start bringing my dad to church. He's blind, and he started living with me. So it was a bit complicated at this time. At the same time, there were some people in the office that had volunteered for a long time, and they offered really to help me. And they brought in someone as well. We had a first service, a meditation service, and the person who did it had left, retired. And they brought somebody in that had been highly recommended and wanted him to do this meditation, which was okay. But what happened is these two people in the office decided that he really should replace me, and I wasn't aware of that this was happening, because I had kind of my plate full with the new ministry. And so they had met with some people saying how wonderful he was, and he was pretty charming person. And what happened is these little things started showing up at church, like at the back of the sanctuary. They were laughing and stuff, and people started complaining, him and these two people, my two volunteers. And I found later that they were making fun of what I was speaking about on Sunday. And so I had to talk to them. And then other things happened. A chaplain came to me, one of our chaplains, and said, you know, this group is meeting with people, and they're talking about how unity is not a very good thing, that they have something better. And I then got together with them, and we talked about it, and I didn't find that thing to be in line with unity. And so we were at odds with each other, and now they ramped up this idea that I was wrong. I didn't know what to do. These were people that had friends, and they were going out with their friends, and they were working this new idea, and I couldn't agree with it. It didn't feel like it was right. And later on, as this progressed, and as I'm trying to change them and they're trying to change me, now think about this, what Einstein said. He said, you can't solve a problem, what? At the level that it was created. So I'm trying to solve this by convincing them, and they're arguing with me, and we're not getting anywhere. And in the meantime, they're busy working to convince other people. And so I just feel like in a catch-22. There are a lot of people that now like this new guy, but there are also some people that are very disturbed about the things we're saying. So I have two different groups in the church. And this group, this threesome had threatened me. They actually said that if I wouldn't do what they said, that they would split the church, that a bunch of people would leave, that they had talked to a lot of people who didn't like what I was doing. To be honest, I went into, I did not feel oneness at all. In fact, the first thing that came to mind is that I am so over my head. This was the wrong thing to do, to quit the corporate world, to go into ministry. I can't do this. And so this was the crisis. I just didn't see there was no winning here, because they're saying, if you don't do what we want, but if I do what they wanted, it was out of integrity with who I am and what I believe unity is. So I happened to go to a minister's retreat, and my first minister from the 70s, and later married my husband and I in the early 80s, was at this retreat, and I told him what was going on. He just had the most amazing ministry, and I'm thinking, I'm just really alone. I'm just a real failure at this. And he told me this story, and he said when he first came to my home church that he was the 5th minister in 5 years there, that every minister had been kind of eaten alive by a group that ran him out. And when he went there, the person that sent them there from Unity Worldwide said, don't go. You've got young children. This will be a mistake. But he said he went, and what he did was when the same person, a guy that was the biggest giver in the church, decided he should leave. And he got up on one Sunday and he said he told everybody what was happening in the church. And he then said, everybody that agrees with him, please leave now. And about 35 people, he said, left. And after that, the church grew and prospered. And it was just this kind of thing. Oh, okay. This crisis isn't that I'm not right for ministry. And you could apply this to your life, like this crisis, this big problem isn't that I'm not, it's just that I haven't understood my oneness. And so this was my challenge. Could I come to a place of oneness? Because I remember my husband at the time was going, fire them or quit. Don't tell me about this anymore. But I wanted to come from a place where I was no longer scared. And so this minister and I became prayer partners. We prayed every week. I spent time in prayer, and finally this peace. And I'm calling it that I made this quantum leap into a place where I was no longer fearful. And it was the most amazing peace feeling. And I no longer said that I needed to stay. I no longer worried whether the church would divide or not. I just needed to be honest from this open heart. And so I did. I spoke to these 3 people. I told the man that I felt out of integrity. I told him he could no longer volunteer. The other 2 women quit as well. And there was a second part of this story. Actually, people at the church were grateful. 5 people left, not half the church, would have been about like 75 people. It was like 5. So I didn't understand how I'd gone down this path of, and haven't we done this with some of the crises in our life? We built them up to this big, big story and we're caught. And we don't understand that there's a consciousness, which Jesus called the kingdom of heaven, which will lift us up to a place where we can approach this in a way that opens to possibilities. And by the way, I had invited them first to come and have a conversation with the congregation, which they had rejected. Let's bring this out in front of everybody, like my first minister had suggested, and they weren't. And so they left. Now there's a second chapter of this story, very short. The person who generated all the meetings with people and things came back. And on Sunday, she went around before church asking people to fire me. And one day I came into church and she was there. She had left for a while and then come back. And this peace was still with me, enough that I came over to her and said, this energy isn't right in our congregation before Sunday. So I came over to her and I put my arms around her. And this love flowed through me that just, you know, I saw beyond all the stuff that she was saying. None of it mattered. And I could only feel love for her. And I looked at her and I put her in my arms and she's wiggling away. And I'm saying, I love you. And it wasn't words, it was a feeling. And she looked and tears are rolling down her cheeks. And she said, I hate you. I hate you. And she ran out of the church before the service started. And I didn't see her again for 5 years, chapter 3. She and her friend, and not the man, came back to church, but they wouldn't look and they'd rush out for a while and they wouldn't get near me, which was okay. I was fine, letting them have their process. And a few, I'd say maybe 6 months into them coming, after church, they came up to me and they said, we really gave you a hard time, didn't we? And, you know, I hugged them and loved on them. And it was me that gave me a hard time. It wasn't them. They were being who they are. It was me who had to come to a place. Now, have I learned that lesson in ministry? Because that was near the beginning. Well, I flipped back and forth. There'd be times that I would again go into this arguing or trying to get people to agree with me. But the thing is, I got a little better at it. The first time, it took me a long time to get to that place and speaking to a lot of people and praying. And I got to where I could just do it a little faster. But know that when we have this crisis, our first reaction's okay. I now see that my first reaction will always be defensive, will be wanting to get the other person to agree with me. But this new level of consciousness we are called to be co-creators. We are called to evolve by coming to this place. And what's interesting is what we're going to begin in October is embracing conflict, creating peace. We are actually going to subtitle our discussion, which, take a big breath of this, living as nothing and no one is against you. Living, that's what this whole book that we'll be doing, Eye of the Storm, embracing conflict and creating peace, is living as nothing. It was the most popular class that I ever did in my church. I was requested over and people retook it over and over. So we'll teach just one part of it every month and you'll have a whole month to practice. But life's going to give us practice. It gave me in ministry practice and practice. That said, just let me put this in perspective. It was a small part of all the love and the amazing people and love and the growth I saw in people. But I had to grow too. You see, I had to get to a place, and that's when Barbara Marx Hubbard says that it requires this new innovation within ourselves. It created what in me? Resilience. I had to walk through it and decide that I belonged. My soul was welcome there, even though some people were telling me it wasn't. I had to learn that resilience. I had to become more creative. I had to become more grounded in the belief that what I was speaking about was really meaningful and that I needed to hold that in light of people that said it wasn't. And so all these great things happen. You know, when I was on the staff of a church for almost 5 years before I started ministerial school, it was run by a minister had been a minister for 25 years. We had some things like that, but never anything to that extent. And so I just thought, just things go so smooth and all I have to say is unity things. No, I needed to look at the part of me, and we all do, that doubts ourselves, and that right now maybe doubts our country and doubts some of its leaders. And we have to look and say, there's more here. There's an evolution. I'm the caterpillar still crawling, and I keep going back to the caterpillar, but I'm called, and that's what we're all called, to be the butterfly, to be the butterfly. So I want to leave you with a last poem, and this is from Joseph Campbell, and it's called The Hero's Path. We have not even to risk the adventure alone. For the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path. And where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find God. And where we thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. And where we have thought to travel outwards, we shall come to the center of our own existence. And where we thought to be alone, we shall be with all of the world. So now let's bring that into a time of meditation.
Everywhere I look, there is much to be done, needs to be met, justice to be won. I am in this world, but not of it. What is mine to do? Everywhere I look, there is much to be done, needs to be met, justice to be won. I am in this world for a reason. What is mine to do?
So let's take a deep breath together. Knowing that within each of us is our own unique hero's story. That invites us to be connected to our oneness. To acknowledge that sometimes we're afraid, and sometimes we don't know a way out. But just like the DNA in each of our cells that sends forth our destiny, so within us is a plan. A plan for opening our minds, our hearts. And as the Buddha said, to be awake. I am awake. Take those words. I am awake. I no longer need to compare myself and my journey to anyone else's. My gift is like no one's. I am awake. And take a focus on your heart for a moment. Imagine that the spark of divinity is a light radiating from that heart space. And now let's just hold our world and note that all these lights, like our light, as we meditate, that there are people meditating and holding this consciousness around the world. Little beautiful lights around our world. And so send your light forth and connect with another light. And then another. And then another. And imagine those that you've connected are sending forth their light and connecting. And there is a web, an infinite web of light that holds us, that holds those that we love, those that we have not yet met, but that have made this commitment to lift the consciousness, to evolve us to the next quantum leap. And as this connecting light, it starts filling our whole world, from the depth of the oceans to the sky and beyond in the universe. When Jesus told us to be the light of the world, not to hide it, our eyes, our awareness is now open, and we see light everywhere. We see heroes everywhere. We see the path unfolding within us. New eyes, new awareness. I am awake. And let's take that now as we hold this earth of light into the silence. This is our time. To continue our hero's journey, to shift the consciousness to more and more love, more peace, more abundance, more joy, and more justice. We are awake, and so it is. Amen and amen.
Everywhere I look, there is much to be done, needs to be met, justice to be won. I am in this world for a reason. What is mine to do?
Oh, thank you, Janine. I love that song. And so now is the time that we do our offering. And obviously we're not doing that in person, but for me, offering is not just about giving, although if you wish to give, you'll see on our email place that you can send a check. And I appreciate all those that have done that. But it is also a time for us to receive, to be open to that giving and receiving consciousness that is so part right now of what is our awakening in the world. And so let me just get to our screen so we can say our unity offertory blessing. And so would you take your hands out and feel the gift that you have, your journey, and even if you're not exactly aware of what exactly it is, but know that it's there and it's expressing whether you know it or not. And say that from the consciousness of the gift that we're giving to the world. And so divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. And I am grateful.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
So would you join now as we say our unity prayer of protection? And I've got my earth here to hold. And just imagine that web of light that we know is there, the earth. And that this unity prayer of protection affirms that truth. So together, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so it is. Thank you so much for joining us today.